How are you? Oh, I don't know what to say. I'm bad at openings. Exit. Do you want to do the opening? Hello. Yeah. So we're here. I have to use like multiple maps today because of a technical issue. But yeah. So we have Constantine and Exit here with us today. How you doing, Constantine? I have to. I forgot that there's that bug where the audio doesn't go through, and I don't know if that bug existed, so they might not. Yeah, it did, so they couldn't hear you. But it's cool. So I caught the bug already, so it should be good now. So can you one of you talk now, so I can see if it works?
Good evening, everyone.
Okay,
Thanks
it
for joining.
works. There we go. We fixed it. Okay. See, sometimes you have bugs, and the bugs, this bug only lasted a few seconds, so it's not the worst bug. Why are you not seeing anything? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm seeing things.
I'm not seeing anything.
What do you mean?
You broke everything.
I broke everything? But I can. Okay, I can see everything. I'm confused now. I'm gonna go to YouTube. Maybe there was more than one bug. No, it works fine. It works fine. I can, or maybe.
Are you sharing your screen right now?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So YouTube is fine. Now I have to fix Discord apparently. Oh, because Discord crashed right after I shared my screen, so that's why you couldn't see anything.
Right.
Okay, so that makes sense. That's logical. Okay, so we're good. We're good. We had more than one bug, but it's fine. They're all fixed. And this is the time when people like join the stream anyway, so most of them probably won't even know what happened, except for all the people who watch later, who will know this happens. So anyway, Constantine, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you? How was you? How was the weekend? And over there in Ukraine.
The weekend. Well, it dried out a little bit. After a few days of like raininess and stuff. It wasn't that wet to begin with. I don't want to exaggerate that, but it seems that as it dried out, Ukraine started doing a little bit more. But we're also on a multi-day delay on news, so we're not going to know what happened for a few more days probably. So yeah, that's what happened. Oh well, we do know one thing. Ukraine captured this town. I've been practicing how to say this, Constantine. I want you to tell me if I'm close. Piatiat, fuck, Piatichati. Is that it?
Pietychatki.
I was close. I was closer than last time. Let's just play it that way. Anyway, so they captured Piatichatki, and they have been moving. Okay, so the direction they've been moving is a bit up in the air. I'm gonna go to a satellite view of this. So there are two directions that Ukraine is said to have moved in. And one direction we know for sure is true. So they've definitely gone west. The other direction that we've been told they moved in is southeast towards Dolinka. But the satellite imagery that I've been looking at for the past few hours, there's no evidence that they moved southeast, like zero, like literally none. All these fields are like pristine, no shelling, nothing, no tire tracks, no nothing. So we know that they're moving west, and we know that there have been a number of battles in this kind of area between Jereblanki and Piatichatki. Anyway, there's a lot of battles here. We've seen videos of Russia trying to counterattack, moving lots of vehicles down this street. They've lost a ton. I've marked a few. They lost a BMP-3. They lost a tank. I think it was a T-72, but it was really hard to identify. And they've also lost this other BMP-3. And I think they've also lost even more BMP-3s. They may have lost like 4 or 5 BMP-3s here, and in addition to several tanks, one of which I could locate, and there were a few more, and also there were artillery pieces and stuff that they lost here, along with tons of infantry. So this Russian counterattack was a bit of a disaster, and the eastern part of Jarablanki, it is destroyed, I would say. It doesn't really exist anymore. It's been shelled to like nothingness. So I was tempted to change my line of control because I honestly think I really think Russia's line of control is like to the west over here, and everything east is a gray area. And the line of contact might be more like here. So like this might be like this line here might be the front line, and I think this is kind of Russia's line, and everything in between is a gray area. I think that's kind of what I see on the satellite imagery, but it's really hard to nail down these specifics. So that's kind of like the biggest news story of the past few days. So, but the issue here is that this town or this whole area is really important to Russia, and the reason why is because from what I understand, Russia had to move their reserves into, or they're like local reserves. So they had reserves kind of like in this area, and they had to move them into 2 places. First, they had to move them over to Dolinka, where they have like a line of defense, kind of like over here somewhere. And they also used them to counterattack, and that counterattack was a disaster. And now the question is, how many reserves do they have left in this kind of local area? And you also have to keep in mind that they have a defensive line up here that they're trying to defend. And so the question is, do they have any reserves here? And it seems that the evidence is that they don't, that they kind of blew through their reserves. And now they're having to call people up from Vasilivka to push them into this kind of reserve position. So this, from what I understand, this is the first time Russia has had to move beyond their, front echelon of guys to reinforce a position. So that's what I understand anyway. And so it's a big deal in that sense, in that this is it represents, maybe you could say, the first like I don't know how to describe it. How would you describe it, Constantine? It's like is this like a strategic success? Like I don't know.
No, this is not. This cannot be called a strategic success. It's not like this is local, more tactical things that are happening.
But the reserves, making Russia commit these reserves is really what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's important, but you cannot call it strategic yet. However, yes, that's one of the good things to have Russia start committing the reserves. And what's really good here is that Russia is conducting those counteroffensives. This is what Ukraine needs, because we are, I would say, with the Western provided gear, we have somewhat mobility advantage, and that advantage is more apparent and can be utilized during the when enemy is counterattacking.
Yeah. So the, I'm
So
just
it's the purpose of kind of the very beginning of the counteroffensive maybe is to essentially have Russia continue to pull up resources that are too far back for Ukraine to hit effectively right now. That seems like a fairly big win. Is that right?
Yeah, that indicates that Russia by itself pulling the reserves indicates that like the Ukraine is moving in the right direction. That's all I would say. You cannot say much more about it.
Yeah, this is a good thing. It's a victory. So this is like a little tiny town that maybe people don't really care about, but it's leading to a larger military movements that are in Ukraine's favor. Because what Russia is afraid of is, first, they don't want Ukraine taking Dolinka and kind of pushing south that way. So that's why they're forced to put reserves into this area to defend that town. And the other thing is they don't want Ukraine moving west and cutting off these forces that are defending the river. So that these are two different obstacles that or two different issues that Russia is trying to deal with using a relatively small number of forces. So now they have to call in more forces to stabilize it. So anyway, so the more that Ukraine can force Russia to commit, and they're trying to do it like everywhere. If you zoom out, Ukraine is trying to make Russia commit their reserves all along the line, so that there'll one day be a point where Russia has so few reserves that they might not be able to respond to a given problem, and then that'll be when Ukraine will be able to take advantage of Russia's situation. So that's kind of like the goal in the long term. This is kind of the first victory, you could say. These other, you could say, Ukraine has advanced in this other location, which unfortunately I couldn't update the website with this last change because of a technical problem. But so anyway, so you could say that Ukraine moved more here, which is true, but Russia had more people here to begin with, right? And they were able to kind of fall back more. So they haven't had to commit the reserves to this area yet. Although if this keeps going the way Ukraine is pushing, they'll probably have to in the near future, I imagine. So anyway, speaking of this location, that we finally have satellite imagery today that is nice and clear. And this clear satellite imagery shows that Ukraine at some point, I don't know if they control it, but at some point Ukraine moved up into kind of these positions, and I don't think they're there anymore. But they moved up to here, and they were probably repelled and fell back. I think. Anyway, that's what I see in the imagery. So I've marked this whole area as a gray area for now. This Russian line that I've marked here is territory that Ukraine has never reached in this attack. So that's kind of what's going on in this southern portion here.
So when you see that you saw stuff that made you think that's what happened, you're talking about artillery fire marks on the ground, or is there other specific things that you see that make you think that?
Yeah, it's basically artillery fire. It's not just artillery. There's also a few bombs, aerial bombs that went off, and some there's MLRS in the imagery. You can tell they're kind of have their own pattern of MLRS. So it's artillery, MLRS, and some airstrikes, and just like rampant fire, like the ground was on fire at some point.
But there's no like leftover equipment that's sitting there that maybe they had to leave behind or anything like that.
I couldn't see that. I don't have the resolution to see that much detail. Unfortunately, I don't. I don't have those big boy satellites. You have a baby satellite. It's more like a potato. It's a flying potato. So yeah. So uh, there was heavy shelling at one point right here, next to Novodonetsky, and this whole area to the west was all heavily shelled. And we saw this Ukrainian attack. It's not a big surprise. Ukraine kind of came down on the west side of the town. They moved in. They probably took control of the town at one point, and then Russia counterattacked, and Ukraine was pushed out. So all of that was known. That happened like 2 weeks ago, so it's not a big surprise. This movement down here is more recent than this attack on Novodonetsky. But we don't know when most of this happened because we have 2 weeks of cloudy weather. So it probably isn't terribly recent. It probably isn't this week. It may have been last week that they pushed down this far. And it is possible that Russia moved back up, but there's no sign of shelling here that I see. So it makes me think that Russia isn't there either. It seems like a no man's land to me. I'm hoping in 2 days, so that would be Friday. Anyway, so in 2 days, there should be more imagery, and hopefully it'll be a clear day, and then we can compare a 2 day interval instead of a like 15-day interval, because comparing over 2 weeks is just crazy, because so much can happen over 2 weeks, whereas in 2 days you know that it's at least recent. There's also in the satellite imagery there was some more MIC-lick action in this general area. So Ukraine firing more MIC-licks, and this is territory that they actually, it wasn't here, it was up here. There's more MIC-lick action up here in territory that Ukraine obviously controls. I'm not an engineer, so I don't really understand why you'd use MIC-licks in an area you control. I guess it's just faster or something. And similarly, there was some MIC-lick activity over here. I can share a picture of that if I'm just gonna scroll up until I find it because I kind of want to show this one. So okay, so here is it before the MIC-lick, and that's the after. So you can see the before and after. You see these big, MIC-lick lines, these explosive charges laid by Ukrainian engineers to blow through a minefield. This was in the past 3 days. This happened, and this is right. Where was it? I think it's let's find it again. It's the little triangle patch. It is over here somewhere. Oh, it's right here. Yeah, I marked it. I was smart and marked it. So it's right here. So that's obviously a direction of movement towards Pryutny, which is where Ukraine is attacking right now. So in addition to that, in Rivnepil, there's a lot of signs of really heavy shelling. So we have up here, so there's that town of Rivnepil. To the west of Rivnepil, heavy shelling. To the east, heavy shelling in both of these tree lines. In the northeast, heavy shelling, and in the north, heavy shelling. Now, I don't know who is doing this shelling. It could be Ukrainian shelling, it could be Russian shelling. If it's Russian shelling, that's pretty interesting because that implies Ukraine took the town probably. If it's Ukrainian shelling, then they would be, preparing to attack. So you can't really tell who is doing what. Maybe with some more imagery we can determine this, and maybe we'll get some more news about this. It is possible that Ukraine captured Rivnepil, though, although there's no firm evidence beyond just the shelling, and we don't even know who's doing the shelling. In addition to that, this location east of Makarivka, we have some imagery. So this is the before. I think this is like the fifth. So this is like a long time ago. It's like 2 weeks ago at this point, and this is today. It's a pretty heavy shelling. You see the really big difference. Now, this degree of shelling is ridiculous. Like, this is a lot of shelling.
Am I remembering correctly that that's kind of up the hill a little bit from the river valley? Is that right?
Yes, this is up the hill. So if you want to look at it in 3D, we can scroll in and we can look at this. This is so this road here is on the hill basically.
And then, sorry, back the other spot that you were talking about on the other side, that's coming down.
Well,
the other side of the
this
hill?
is like flat over here. So
Oh, gotcha.
so yeah. It's kind of more like a plateau than a hill.
Yeah, understood.
Okay. So so this is some really heavy shelling. Now, obviously, we don't necessarily know who's doing the shelling, but this is really heavy shelling. Especially, I zoomed in on this little corner here, and so this is the before versus the after. The Some of these are
Oh,
really big shells. I'm not entirely sure what these are. They're probably, if I were to guess, they're MLRS, these big ones. And these smaller dots are all probably like 152s, probably. Or
so
155s.
the difference between a shell hitting the ground and leaving a mark versus a shell hitting something and that something like burning off and leaving a mark. It's just the color differentiation there.
Yeah, I mean, the resolution here is so bad that I don't think we would ever see a vehicle. Because you can see like these lines are vehicle tracks, and they're. I mean, I'm zooming in like way more than you're supposed to. These are probably 1 pixel wide, and that's the width of the vehicle. And if you can imagine it, if it weren't long, we probably wouldn't be able to see it, right? So it might not even be a pixel wide. Like the main reason we can see it is because it's long. Whereas if a vehicle just sitting
And
there, we would
it's
never
really
see
being
it.
used like a lot. Like it's somebody's using that often
Yeah,
and like no grass is growing there and all the rest of it. I gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I'm asking all the basic questions today. My apologies.
no, it's good. So yeah, this is again this location right here. Now, who is doing this shelling is a big question. We don't know. Obviously, it's possible Ukraine could have moved through this area without it being publicized. This would it would be pretty like a pretty big story because I'm trying to check to see how far this is. It's 2 lines across, so this would be like to here, I think, or so. That would be that would mean like Rifnapil was basically surrounded. Now, it could also be that all this shelling is done by Ukraine, in which case, they're just taking out Russian positions. So we don't know exactly what's happening here. So all we can see is these explosions, right? So now again, to the east of Eurozhiny, we have imagery again. So here is the before versus the oops, versus the after. So again, this is the before is the 5th and the after is today. So this is like a 2 week period, which is it's really brutal to have only 2 weeks to look at. But this section in the bottom left, this area right here is kind of interesting because we don't know what this really means so much, but we do see that there's action in this area that's southeast. Now, this grass burned out. There's lots of vehicles moving around this area. You can see that this vehicle looks like might be kind of crossing like this, and there's vehicles going north and also east this way. So like all of these tracks are were probably already there to some extent, but just looking at the before, where am I? So like these tracks were already somewhat present, but it just seems that oops, uh, where am I? I'm kind of lost at this point. Okay, so it just seems that there's things going on, and there's artillery signs of artillery shelling and stuff. So that it is just kind of interesting that the southeast of Eurozhiny seems to have some action going on. Now this could be Ukrainians shelling the Russians for all we know. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything has changed hands. It's just showing that things are happening, even though there might not be news about it. And that's kind of the theme of what I'm going through at the moment. So I'm gonna close all these windows. Okay. Um, oh, and here is, I mentioned them clicking the area next to Vlika Novosilka, and here's the image of that. So we knew that this click was there like 2 weeks ago, and now there's three in the same spot. So that's what I meant before when I said they're
What you can
clicking
see
up here.
how small those demining cables are on the scale of the theater.
What's that?
You can see how small those
Yep.
demining cables are compared to the size of the theater
Yeah.
of the combat area.
So these cables are what, 120 meters long? I think I
Do
think
we
I think the cable is 120 meters and the explosive is 90 meters, I think.
do we know how many of the actual charges they got, or like I only ask like rough numbers just because I've seen you post like a whole bunch of pictures of them lately, which it's awesome that they're using them. This is great. But also it makes you wonder like, okay, how many do you have? Like it's something that we often talk about with artillery rounds. How many do you have? And um, when do allies need to resupply you with those things and that kind of thing? And I just wondered if there was an actual number to that or people just don't really know.
I have no idea. From what I understand, these are really cheap, and like the United States has a ton of them, and I don't know how many we're giving them. I'm sure Ukraine has a bunch too. It's not like sophisticated technology. It's not like
Yeah, those cables, it's just a cable that is stuffed with explosive. I'm quite sure that Ukraine can manufacture them as well. And there is no problem with the numbers of the how you like the
yeah.
cables themselves.
It's one of the few things that's kind of a non-issue. Like the United States can supply the trailer, like like so many of them. There's so many because it's just like a trailer, and then uh,
Problem
and
is
we
that it's not as easy to use as people think. It's not just, oh, I have it, so I'm gonna demine everything. It's quite hard to use in the environment that is denied by the enemy artillery, by the enemy ATGMs, by the helicopters, by the drones. So as soon as you pull that thing out, it's gonna get damaged, and its range is really really low. You cannot shoot it like 5 kilometers away. You shoot it literally like, I don't know, what is the range on that engine? What is like 1 kilometer maximum?
yeah, I'm not sure what the range is, but it's short. It's not very far.
Do you know if they have to be stationary when they fire them, Constantine?
Yeah, you cannot fire it on the move. It's like, as most of the things, you cannot fire them on the move.
Thank you.
So people are asking about the lines of defenses. So if you go to the map, you can turn on the lines of defenses if you click this little clicky thing. And so yeah, these are the defenses. uh, I'm gonna turn off the defenses we're not using because the more defenses you have on, the slower everything is, and uh, we're just gonna we're gonna just look at the ones we need. Okay, so these are the main lines of defenses. You see that Ukraine is getting pretty close to these defenses in near Vasilivka. Now, some of these defensive positions are apparently gray areas. This defensive line here is kind of the first major line of defense in front of Rybitna, or Robotina, Robotna, whatever. Constantine, you say it. I need to learn how to say these words. Constantine, help. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so this.
I'm muting myself on your, so 1 second for me to unmute, so you don't hear my keystrokes like when I'm working.
Anyway, so Ukraine has reached this kind of forward line. It's not like a super important line, but it's known Russian defenses. This is kind of where Ukraine has stopped moving south from Novodanilivka. Now they're trying to break through it. Obviously, they've also kind of pushed down towards this area. They might be further south than I have marked. I've been searching for evidence. I know, I'm pretty certain that they pushed down into these positions briefly and then withdrew. And I think Russia may have retaken some of these positions, so I'm not entirely sure. But they've threatened this line here, and they're at this line here. So yeah, those are kind of the lines of defense that Ukraine has made it to. And then in the Vuhledar area, they have not reached the main lines of defense yet. So that's kind of the defensive stuff. Okay, so now there's another thing that's happened that I guess we should talk about. There was a really massive explosion in Rikove, or however it's pronounced. There's a massive explosion, huge ammo depot destroyed. It caused massive damage to the town. Houses probably destroyed. Large lengths of the railway kind of apparently vaporized into nothingness. There's I don't have the image of the satellite image on me at the hand, but I'm sure most of you have probably seen it by now. But basically, all of these buildings are demolished for the most part. A lot of them demolished to the foundation, like the foundation doesn't even exist anymore. Some of them demolished beneath the foundation, in that it is now a crater that goes underground. So these buildings are gone. This length of railway is also just nothing. It doesn't exist. It's like, it looks like vaporized or something. I don't like, it's actually scary thinking about what happened to this railway, because just like giant chunks of metal are missing. Like, who knows? So and like a lot of these houses are really badly damaged, if not destroyed. So this ammo depot was very significant, obviously. I don't know exactly who it was going to, but we do know that Ukraine was watching Russia build this ammo depot over the course of many weeks, if not months. They had been scouting this position for a long time, and then they decided that this was the day to hit it. What day was this? I can't remember. The 18th. So that was the other day. The same day, kind of got lesser press because it wasn't as spectacular. Ukraine did a very significant attack that I marked wrong at the time, but I've since fixed it, kind of. If I go to the next day, but in what's this, in Luzerny, there was a Ukrainian missile strike apparently, where I've heard that 30 projectiles struck here. 30 seems like a lot. I don't know if 30 is true, but a number of projectiles apparently hit this town. It hit this resort area of this town. I'm gonna go to Google because it's a little higher res in this instance. So they hit this resort area. This resort area apparently was one of the most popular resorts in Ukraine, I've heard. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they say. But just taking a step back, there was a few weeks ago in May, there was a Ukrainian strike on a Russian HQ that was in this area of the town. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I think it was the sanatorium hotel or whatever that was. I think it was the sanatorium hotel, but they hit it with a storm shadow, I think, or something. They hit it with some sort of missile, and apparently a number of officers were wounded and killed. The surviving officers then migrated across the town into this resort, where instead of all living in one building, they decided to spread out amongst all these like little resort houses. And they figured that was safe until the other day when on the 18th, Ukraine struck it with a number of projectiles. They said 30, who knows? But now there's some colorful language that we have to, what's going on? oh, I forgot. There's some colorful language that we can use to describe this. But they say that this is written by Nidria, who is I think he works in Ukrainian intelligence, but he's a character, and if you read his stuff, you know that he doesn't always tell the truth. But anyways, he wrote this colorful report that there are explosions up to 30. That they came in the wind like kamikazes or whatever. Maybe they were drones. I don't know. They said like 40 plus died, or at first there were believed to be 40 killed, and then they found another 18, and they think 60 plus died, maybe up to 80, and another 80 wounded, many of them with amputations. So that's what Nadria said, and who knows if that's accurate, because Nadria is a character. He likes to tell a story. He doesn't necessarily like to tell true stories, but he just likes telling stories, if you know what I mean.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah. So he likes adding drama to events. So that's just kind of the way he is. So he take everything he says for grain of salt, because you never know what he's what spin he's giving. But anyways, that's what he said about Lizard. So those are two major missile strikes. One was on an HQ, one was on ammo. Now, since then, there have been other strikes. Like, for example, last night, Russia hit Kyiv with approximately 24 shahids. They also, I believe they hit, I know they hit Lviv, but I believe they hit it with a shahid, but I'm not sure exactly. They also hit Zaporizhia with S-300s and an Iskander, and I believe also Shahids. Russia has also hit Odessa with calibers. Now, Ukraine has said that most of these were shot down, and we also have footage of some strikes hitting. So, for example, over here, I don't know if this was a S-300 or an Iskander, but we have a big crater in the ground left by some sort of projectile exploding. they this was in like an oil. I don't know what the word is for this. Like they deliver oil. Anyway, so like an oil company, I guess. Um, the and there were apparently strikes in these four locations, and I don't know if these locations are completely accurate. I just marked them because there's some evidence of it. They also hit Komi Shuba with some sort of projectile. I wasn't sure what it was. They didn't say what it was. It may have been an S-300. I'm not really sure. So these are kind of the sorts of strikes going on at the moment. Now, none of those strikes are particularly interesting. They didn't lead to hugely successful events or anything, but there's just something to keep in mind. Oh, and I forgot, Volnovakha, Ukraine blew up an ammo depot here too. There's a somewhat interesting video of the video is a man driving down the street. He started roughly here. He drove down this way, and I believe it ended around here. And the first thing you see in the video are Russians running into these trucks. And the next thing you see is everything on fire and exploding. Uh, and then there was a warning that came with this video to all Ukrainians in occupied territory, where they said basically, if Russians set up near you, please evacuate and get away from the Russians as quickly as possible, because there might be a missile coming.
Is that some messaging that the government has put out often, or is that kind of
No,
newer that we've seen in this offensive?
I want to say that this message is not from the Ukrainian government. It's from people who work in and around the military. So this is not an official statement. This is just advice from people in the military. So it's not like the general staff said this, or like it's not like Zelensky said it. It was coming just from normal, like a guy, just like a guy, like
I mean, it's general common sense, but also, I guess there may be some people that have a harder time doing that. But yeah,
yeah,
you would hope that most people would think to move away when something like that happens.
yeah. So yeah, there's no, there's one other event that was a bit interesting, and people keep they like to talk about this one because it's very spectacular. So there's this video. Um, I'll show you where this happened in a second, but this is a tank full of explosives that makes a very spectacular explosion. This was some sort of suicide vehicle, apparently. They say it was remote controlled.
Which tank was it?
This is I think it's a T-62M. I think that's what I think. Other people have said it's a T-54 or a T-55. I don't think it's a T-54 or 55, but it is packed full of explosives, and it was charging a Ukrainian position. It apparently hit a mine in the minefield and lost its track, and then a Ukrainian shot it with a rocket. It then caught fire, and very shortly after, and we're about to see it on the video right now, very shortly after, caused an absolutely catastrophic explosion. So this is like 4,000 or 5,000 pounds or kilograms of explosives, I think. It was just a catastrophic explosion. It's something that it makes you worry about the Ukrainian soldiers who were there. We don't know what happened to them, especially the guy who shot the tank with a rocket. Hopefully, he took cover. I don't even know if the cover would help, honestly. So this is one event. Now a completely separate event that happened in almost the same area. This was an MTLB that was similarly filled with explosives and detonated. And this happened in roughly the same location. I'll show you where it is. This occurred. The let me click, you stupid. Okay, so the MTLB was here. Now this is Marinka, Pobieda, Novomykolaiv. So this is between those three locations. This is a pretty significant area of the defensive line that Russia is pretty desperate to take, and Ukraine has been holding it pretty well. So you can see how desperate Russia has gotten that they're now sending suicide vehicles, and they launched an attack yesterday where they lost a bunch of BMP-3s. This particular BMP-3, I don't have the video right now, but this BMP-3 was full of infantry, and it had a cope cage on top, and it was just running down the hill and exploded, and like basically everybody died. Another BMP-3 suffered a catastrophic explosion over here, and now this is the tank explosion. So the tank is here, and the MTLB was like over here. So they're really right next to each other, maybe within less than a kilometer apart. So they're trying to basically blow up this tree line that Ukraine has been using as their defensive position. Now, I'm not entirely sure if Ukraine still holds this defensive position, so I've marked it as a gray area for a while. I'm not, because I was never really sure, because I know there's been a lot of heavy fighting for this thing. I don't know what these are called, but whatever this farming thing is. Anyway, so they have Exit. Do you know what these are called? You're a farmer. I don't know what they're called.
Can you show me the satellite version?
Yeah. Okay, I'll go to Google Earth because it's a little easier. These things. What are these called? It's like the circles in the field. I don't know what they're called.
I don't know if that used to be like a dugout. It looks like there's a tree farm just north of it.
Yeah.
And maybe they used to pump water into there to pump out into, like, store it in there to pump out into the tree farm.
Okay.
But specifically, I mean, like, you could build a circle like that for $1 million.
More.
You want me to zoom in more? That's
Yeah.
that's what it is. I just don't know what they're called. They're all over, and I just don't. They're just like, I always just call them like that farm thing.
It could be like an old pond.
Yeah, maybe it's a pond, but because it looks like you see in the circle around it, it's like there is different elevation and there is something to hold the water or something like this. So it's maybe an old pond.
Maybe. So, anyways, there's been a lot of fighting in this area recently. So I marked it for like a few weeks now as a gray area, and now Russia is sending suicide vehicles there. So today Russia claimed, or not even Russia, it was Rybar. Today Rybar claims that they captured this field here, that they call it the menagerie or whatever, but I don't know if that's true, so I just have it as a gray area still. So these Constantine, what do you make of these suicide vehicles?
Its primary use for that equipment. Because T-62s, imagine you have a tank that is driving, right? And the only use you can find it as a suicide vehicle. That means a lot. That means that they cannot maintain them. Because if you have a running tank and you still choose to send it into the suicide mission, and tank is an expensive piece of gear, even the old one, and it provides the protection. Like it's still, if you take T-62 or T-55, it still has much better protection than a BMP-2 or BMP-3. So using it like this, and it also has the firepower. It should have the firepower if it's functional. So my take on it is just, they cannot find the use case for it. The vehicles simply don't. These vehicles simply are not sustainable in the prolonged combat. I mean, like in one battle, if you have one tank and you have one battle, yeah, you probably could use it. But if you have like 10 battles, it's gonna the effort to maintain it is gonna be too high. So I just see it like a desperation moves, not desperation in terms of, oh, we're losing, but desperation more like, I cannot deal with this piece of shit anymore. Let's just stuff it with explosives and send towards the enemies.
Yeah, so this is a still of the tank. Now, to me, this still looks like a T-62 because the turret is round. Well, it looks round to me. It's round. The turret is towards the front of the tank, whereas the T-54, at least from my memory, the T-54 turret is more in the middle, whereas the T-62 is more in the front, and the turret is very round. So it's really hard to identify what tank this is exactly from this image because it's a really low quality image. But I think it's a T-62. It lost its track and this explosion. But do you think this is a new strategy? Because we've seen some vehicles like this before, like last year.
It's like I'm saying, this is a desperation by one of the units that were given them, and like, let's just try something. It's not a strategy. Trust me. It's just send it and forget about it, like it never happened.
It's the explosion is just I feel bad for the Ukrainians who are near there because that is it's just catastrophic. It's a huge explosion.
I didn't realize there was two kind of like shockwaves that come off that. It looked like there was a second one there.
Let's watch it again. Yeah, it does. There are two. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Maybe they had two explosives in like two different spots of the tank, and they blew up slightly different. I don't know.
Is there, Constantine, would there be a risk, like if they just keep doing this in this one particular area, at some point they have to run out of ammunition, maybe?
Who, like, run out of tanks that they send?
Is the tank the ammunition?
I don't even know, but like, I mean, Ukraine keeps going after ammo depots, and if you can't get resupply and you just keep shoving ammo into tanks and then sending them off on their way, at some point,
explosives. I don't know. Did anyone? Was it like actual ammunition, or was it just an explosives?
If I were to guess, just having watched a lot of videos of people blowing stuff up in this war, if I were to guess, it's a bunch of anti-tank mines. It seems like the universal explosive is just chuck a whole bunch of anti-tank mines in that thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, they will not run out of them. They will not use anything that is. mm, They will not use anything that is that they have shortage of for this. And I mean, this is it's one of it's more like an extraordinary case. They cannot you cannot use this strategy continuously. It just unless you're gonna use a really good tank that is with a good system, and put it on the on the conveyor production conveyor. It's quite useless. I don't think that they can do it continuously.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna, I mean, they'll run out of tanks eventually. I mean, I've been counting how many tanks Russia loses. Because I've been trying to get to 1,000. Uh, and if they want to blow up tanks by turning them into giant bombs, I'm in favor of that because I wonder what Russia's going to do when they lose 1,000 tanks because I that's how many roughly speaking, how many I believe they have in reserve. And that was a while ago because they've lost a lot of tanks since then, so it's probably more like maybe 800. So I have very little news from well, in Avdiivka, we Ukraine is advancing into Vasily, but that's kind of all the news I have about Avdiivka. Russia is bombing and trying to capture this southwest area of Avdiivka, but they've had no success. And beyond that, there's fighting in Marinka, and as we just went over, there's fighting in Pobieda. So that's kind of all the news I have from here. The this kind of Toretsk area, I have no real news. There's in this Ozernivka slash Kurdyamivka area. There are reports that Ukraine is attacking Ozernivka, but I don't really know what that means. I don't know if they're attacking like here, or if they're actually crossing the canal, or if moving up this way counts. It's all very ambiguous. So there's no particular news. Regarding Klishivka, there was a Wargonzo today said that Ukraine has moved within 1.5 kilometers of Klishivka. Now, uh, if I add a 1.5 kilometer circle around the edge of Klishivka, which would be like right here. Now, a one point if you were to say Ukraine is within if Ukraine moved within 1.5 kilometers, it would imply, for example, that they moved into this forest belt. Now, it's possible they've done that. Obviously, this is not a significant distance to move. It's a few hundred meters of movement. So this is not a crazy thing to suggest. Now, whether that makes it true or not is a completely different story. I have no idea if that's true. Now, if you were to measure 1.5 kilometers from down here, it would mean that they moved up to this tree line, which is something that is a much bigger ask and seems much less likely. And if you were to measure from like here, I guess you could say they moved to this tree line. But I don't think that is what they're talking about. I think, if anything, they're talking about either this tree line, or they could be talking about this position here, which, as I did kind of a stream about this position already. I don't feel like talking about it again. But you could say that this position is in itself within 1.5 kilometers of Klishivka, depending on where you want to measure Klishivka starting. Because you could say that maybe this house is in Klishivka. Like, who knows? So that was kind of the War Gonzo statement. People a lot of people took his statement as meaning some huge advance, when in reality, what he was saying is like Ukraine could move 200 meters, and he would be technically right. And yes, a lot of people are correctly saying that Wargonzo died. What do you think of that? Do you, Constantine, do you think he died?
I mean, that was a dude with a red beard. That's all we can say on that video. So
I mean,
I don't think so.
a
I think
redhead with a beard died. And there's only one of those. His name is Wargonzo.
yeah. So I mean it can happen, but to say that there is some definitive proof for that, for me to call something happened, no, I'm not gonna say that.
Anyways, it's a joke. But yeah, that's kind of the news about Klashivka, I guess. uh, moving to the north of Bakhmut, there's not terribly much to talk about in Berhivka and Yahidna. Russia is just continuously reinforcing, and there's not much movement going on. Same for basically all this area. There was evidence enough that Ukraine moved up to this. There's a trench line at the edge of this forest strip, and there's videos of Ukraine in those trenches. So I marked this as a Ukrainian advance a few days ago, but that's not super important. Now there's lately, I don't know how this got so messed up, but lately the K2 battalion has been releasing their videos of them defending this position. Now, obviously, these videos are old, but I didn't know they're in this position, so I marked them in this position. That was kind of interesting. Now, Belohorivka is still kind of a nightmare scenario, from what I understand. Lots of heavy shelling, etc. Russia is really apparently wants to capture Belohorivka as a major objective of theirs at the moment. And similarly, Russia apparently launched a large attack in the Kremenov forest. Now, Konstantin, you know more about this than I do. Do you want to talk about the Kremenov forest?
No, I don't have much to talk, honestly. I have just guys saying, oh, there was a big attack over here. We lost a couple of positions. They took them back. But once again, this is a big forest for people to understand. And one of the things about it is that there are no markers on the area if you're fighting in that forest. So it's pretty hard to like say if in other areas you can hear, oh, we're fighting near Klashivka, we're near Kuzemivka, we're fighting near Robitne. In this case, we're fighting in the forest. That's how they say it. And this is a big area. This is a big forest. So what I can tell is that Russia mounted an assault, like really large assault, and one of the battalion sector that one battalion controls, there was a attack on the entire sector, and they lost the positions. Their border, their adjacent unit from National Guard as well, lost the position. Next day they managed to take it back. They took it back the same day. The reserves came in, kicked the Russians out, and the adjacent unit took the position back just today. That's all I can say. This is a battalion scale attack. That probably means that around the Russians used around 2 to 3 companies to attack it. And we got it back. And the Russians suffered losses, at least from what I've seen. Russians suffered losses in one specific trench. They lost like 7 people, and around it there were more bodies, probably plus 7 to 10 as well. That's what I saw. But once again, the reality is that they have conducted multiple attacks, all in the same sector. Which means that it can be the same result on a different in the different positions that they have attacked. So I think they lost probably around the like 45 people dead, which means probably around 70 to 100 in total was the wounded, was the ones that cannot fight anymore. It's a company level, company size loss. That's what I can say about confirm. The only thing that I confirm about criminal.
Yeah, and today it's interesting because the Russians said today that Ukraine went on an attack in Crimea today, and I guess that's what you're talking about when they retook these positions. But yeah, it was interesting. Yesterday it was all about the Russian attack, and today apparently they're talking about the Ukrainian attack, and obviously everything is on a time delay in how this is reported. So so for example, if Ukraine talks about a Russian attack, and then Russia talks about a Ukrainian attack, that doesn't mean that they happened in any particular order, because one might be in a 24-hour delay, the other might be in a 48-hour delay. You know what I mean? So we don't the timing of the announcement doesn't necessarily coincide with the timing of how it happened in reality. But we do have a video of Russians dropping a Russian drone dropping bombs on a Ukrainian position, which is in this forested area right here, south of Crimea, and north of Ryohorivka. So yeah, and we also have Russia is attacking towards Yampolivka as well. So this is not within the forest. This would be outside the forest, moving towards Yampolivka. So yeah, also video came out today. We don't know how old this video is, but it showed a Ukrainian tanks, not Ukraine. It showed Russian tanks being destroyed in an attack in this position. They were trying to attack across this field, and I think it was 2 tanks and 3 BMPs, and they got destroyed. I meant to delete this marker on the map because I think it's very old, but it was something interesting. Now, everything north of here, I have no news. I have no news about Kuzymivka. I have no news about Kupiansk. I have no news up there at all. I don't know, Constantine, do you know anything up here?
No, I have only sensitive stuff that I cannot talk about.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, all the sources I have up here, they are radio silent. They have not said a word in 2 weeks, like like nothing. So, yeah, the people you talk to, you're not allowed to talk about what they talk about. So yeah, there's no news in that area apparently, or maybe there will be in a few days. So yeah, that's kind of all I got. Oh, there was a report of uh, what was it? I can't say that word. Anyway, so they found bacteria in this water supply here, which is not which is near the Dnipro. But so that's not great, not great. But I guess we're gonna deal with that. Um, so that's kind of all the news I got. Uh, there are some things in Russia that caught on fire, but they're not terribly interesting. Although they're very difficult for me to geolocate. Uh, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say, Constantine, or Exit?
I was going to ask the what are they called again? The guys who were crossing into Russia um, up further north
Yeah,
and
the
kind of barely holding territory up there, maybe for half a day. There hasn't been any more reports of them doing anything really specific recently, right? Like in the last week.
um no, but it does seem that they're preparing something. Um, I kind of think that they're going to attack somewhere across this Sumy border, either into Kursk or Bryansk. they've been heavily shelling. Ukraine has been heavily shelling across the border in some of these towns. And it seems that this is the sort of preparation that we saw prior to these attacks into like Shebekino and whatever. So they're doing these similar sort of heavy shelling, like for example, in this location here, and also anyway they're doing this sort of heavy shelling across the border, so that could be that they're preparing to do another similar attack. And I believe that they are shelling in multiple locations, like three maybe, and they might attack one of them, and they're, I imagine, you to shell multiple places to keep the Russian on their toes so they don't know where the attack is coming. So I don't know for certain. Like, obviously, I don't know their plans, but if I were to guess, I think we might see another one of those incursions soon. But I don't know.
Because they keep drawing Russian forces away. Didn't they say they took some out of Zaporizhia and moved them up to the
Yeah.
last incursion?
Yeah, there's now like Chechens up here. The Chechens are pretending to be heroes, and a bunch of Russians are now like Igor. He's really upset the Chechens are there, and a bunch of other people are pretty upset. There's Chechens around, so it's just kind of it's kind of like there's this kind of political infighting in Russia. That's I think the political infighting is really the goal of these attacks. So if they can stoke the flames of Russian discord, I think they're going to attempt to do it, and maybe each time Russia gets a little bit more destabilized, and that instability could end up. Who knows what would happen with the instability?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's an interesting topic actually. Like you can talk about it a lot, but Russian internal stability is if you speak about it like in the short term, yeah, they can hold a year or two. They can hold probably 3 years, you know. But as you stoke the fire, it's melting and melting and melting. At some point, they will they can start fighting each other inside. When is it gonna happen? Like I don't know, but for such a strong so-called strong empire, this is quite a short period of time uh, to start these problems after 1.5 years. So Ukraine is working in that direction, I think.
yeah, and they seem pretty good at it. They really know how to turn the gears on Russians, apparently.
We have Igor on our side.
Yeah, uh, I guess so. Uh,
And Prigozhin, yeah, we have.
yeah, he's on the payroll. So that's it. That's kind of all the news I got. One thing that the Ukrainian general staff today was writing about how these two towns flanking Mariupol have been going through. They've been doing like filtration on the Ukrainian locals, like checking for passports and doing all sorts of filtration type stuff, trying to kind of guard the two highway or these two major highways out of Mariupol. There are more than two highways out of Mariupol, but they seem to be filtrating those two highways in particular. So that's that. All right. So I guess we'll be back on Friday. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here to Exit and Constantine, and thank you to all the listeners. You can do all the YouTube things where you like, share, comment, and subscribe. You know, all those things that you're supposed to do on YouTube to make the algorithm like you more. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
I was expecting Constantine to say bye, but he didn't.